Milwaukee made some major improvements to their M18 FUEL compact and mid-torque impact wrenches. We got our hands on them early and immediately ran some tests and took them on a few jobs.
These are both great tools. I mean, clearly they're going to be a great fit for mechanics, but they're also good for like construction, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, MRO, all those sort of applications as well.
The third generation M18 FUEL compact impact wrench drops nearly an inch off of its head length, measuring just 4.9 inches now.
There's not much difference in weight. The new model's maybe 1/10 of a pound lighter. It's just 2.4 pounds bare, and it goes up to about 4 pounds if you stick a 5 amp hour battery on there. If you put a high output 3.0 pack on there, it's going to drop down to 3.7 pounds.
Even though this is a much smaller tool, it's got more power, picking up 20% more nut-busting torque. Now it has 250 foot-pounds of nut-busting torque and 200 pounds of fastening torque.
It was even more impressive on our test rig. We took 7/8 inch bolts, these are grade 8 bolts, and we torqued them to increasingly higher torque just to see what they would do. We coated them in automotive grease and did a test that was consistent with how we test impact wrenches.
Every situation is different, of course, but the way we set this test up, Milwaukee blew right past 250 foot-pounds and broke 400. It was a really impressive performance for such a compact tool.
Milwaukee's second generation mid-torque impact wrench also comes in a little bit smaller. In fact, it drops about 3/4 of an inch, making it only 6 inches long. That's almost as small as the last version of the compact model.
It's a little lighter too. The bare tool weighs just 3.5 pounds and it comes up to 5.1 with a 5 amp hour battery. Now, even though it's got less runtime, we still like using the 3 amp hour high output pack on the smaller jobs, and that brings the weight to 4.8 pounds.
Like the compact tool, the mid-torque picked up some power, even though they managed to shrink the tool a little bit and make it smaller. It measures about 550 foot-pounds on fastening torque and gets up to 650 on removal.
Now, we tried to test Milwaukee's claims on their nut-busting torque, but it turned out we busted some nuts. We use high-quality grade 8 7/8 inch nuts and bolts for our testing, but the threads actually failed before we could put enough torque on them to really challenge the top end of what Milwaukee put into this mid-torque impact wrench.
We were able to test up to 500 foot-pounds, and the Milwaukee just zipped off that nut like it was nothing. In fact, it was so fast we couldn't even really time it for a baseline.
It's clear this is a really powerful tool for its size. When you take a look at what you have to work with on a daily basis, most pros are going to be able to leave that heavier high torque impact wrench on the sideline, even when you're working on rusted lugs.
There's still times when you need a high torque impact wrench. I mean, diesel mechanics, guys working on industrial equipment, trying to break away really frozen nuts and bolts. But in construction and even in those applications, a mid-torque, it's going to get done about 80% of the type of work you're likely to do, and it's going to do it with a lot less weight.
Now, even though these two tools have very different power levels, they share several new features. Now, for one, we love the new tri-beam LEDs on the front. Those foot-mounted LEDs can really kind of cast a shadow because they're coming up from the bottom, but these almost eliminate shadows completely when you're working in low light situations.
In addition to the standard 3 speed modes, you also have an auto mode. And so that's really cool because in forward, it's going to assist with fastening, and in reverse, it's going to slow down when it takes those bolts off so you don't lose them.
In forward, that assist mode is designed to help you prevent over-tightening your fasteners. So it's going to impact a few times and then stop. The idea is then you take your torque wrench, set that bolt correctly, and you know you've got it right.
When you use auto mode in reverse, it's kind of smart. It starts off slow and then it gets stronger and stronger until it breaks that nut free. And then it switches over to low mode and it backs that nut or that bolt out so that you don't lose it.
Now, one minor change that they've made that's going to be a lot more applicable to construction and utility rather than mechanics is right here on the back. The lanyard hole is quite a bit larger than it was before, so it's going to be easier to thread your tether through there.
Yeah, and since these are M18 brushless fuel tools, they're going to use that power state brushless motor. They're going to have red link technology inside, and they're going to use red lithium batteries. And so that's a lot of fancy terms to basically say the tool and the batteries talk together, and they're pretty smart to get the most power they can out of each other.
Both the compact and the mid-torque versions come in 3 different styles. You got a 3/8 inch friction ring, a 1/2 inch friction ring, and a 1/2 inch pin detent. And the genius behind the camera, Austin, he tells me that he's going to put those model numbers up for you.
That's right. And there's no word at present on whether there's going to be 1 key versions of these tools, but they've got currently 1 key on the high torque and on the last gen of the compact, so I wouldn't rule that out as coming some point in the future.
I'd put money on it. No matter which drive style you want, the compact version is going to run you $199 as a bare tool or $369 with two 5 amp hour batteries in a kit. The 3/8-inch version also has a compact battery kit that you can get for $299.
That's a lot of numbers, and I'm glad we have lower thirds to kind of show people. On the mid-torque side, that bare tool is $219. You put it with a couple of 5 amp hour batteries in a kit, that's $419. You can also get the 3/8-inch version for $319. That comes with a couple of compact batteries. And then I think the big takeaway is the new mid-torque is $20 more than the old one, but man, with the power and the weight and the size reduction, I mean, it's totally worth it.
I think so.
Well, we kind of covered the specifics, but now let's just talk about what we think about who these tools are for and just our general thoughts on them.
Yeah, when you think about impact wrenches, we usually think about mechanics. And Tom, that's really where you spend most of your time working with these.
Yeah, I use these for taking lug nuts off, working on some brakes, and yeah, definitely working around the trucks. It was great.
So compact or mid-torque, do you see one as being more valuable than the other, or should you have both?
For me, if I had to pick one tool that does it all, I'd pick the mid-torque. I was able to take some rusty lug nuts off my F250 that I haven't taken the tires off of in 2 years.
Wow.
And it just shot those nuts right off. The other thing is I really enjoyed was the auto mode. Really cool how it really hits hard at first and then slows down as you're taking the lug nuts off. And then when you're putting lug nuts back on, it's spinning them on and then just only hits it once or twice and it doesn't over torque them.
Let you get the torque wrench out and get it dialed in the way you want. Yeah.
So you think that's got enough muscle behind it to replace having that high torque impact?
From everything I did with it, for sure. If you're coming into something that's needing more power than that tool has, I think you have a bigger issue.
Yeah, what's interesting is you're talking about the mid-torque has really like the same basic anvil system that you get in the high torque. So really what you're talking about is a difference of motor size. It's not that it can't take nuts off or do the applications that we need it for.
I loved it. It was just very maneuverable, very easy to fit into tight spots. I use that working on brakes too. I did use this as well. And I like this tool. It just doesn't have quite the oomph of that one, obviously, especially when it comes to lug nuts or something like that. But, you know, if I was a small engine mechanic, you know, swapping lawnmower blades, doing things on small engines, lawnmowers, this probably would be my go-to tool for that, the compact tool.
And on the construction side too, there's different applications for these. I mean, if I'm doing, you know, road and bridge or, you know, some heavy industrial stuff, this mid-torque is really going to take care of a lot of that. But you talk about doing some landscape or decking type stuff, or maybe using ledger screws, timber screws, that kind of stuff. That compact's got all you need, and it's really lightweight, pretty nice there. And you know, one of the other things is when you start talking about the type of power you need from some of these major heavy equipment and industrial applications, you're not using a 1/2-inch chuck anymore on these. You're already going up to a 3/4 inch or a 1-inch chuck to get the job done. And so you're in a totally different class of tool.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway here is it really will surprise people who haven't used a mid-torque just how powerful they are and just how much weight and size you save by using a tool like this when you might think you need a bigger tool. So if you got any questions about these tools or really anything else, just go ahead and leave it in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.
Catch you later.
Hey, help us out by subscribing to the channel below and tap that bell to get notified when we post new tool reviews and shootouts. And as always, thanks for watching.